But it blows my mind. I can see us humans looking for friends. It's hard for me to fathom God. Would you say he's desperate for this friendship?
He said he didn't have many friends, and that's what shocked me.
Okay, I understand why you're a friend. You paid the price, you did all those things, you had the servant mentality, you get promoted. But what about every believer? I mean, are we Swiss cheese?
No. Of course, and I don't know why he said that, to his disciples. There was a point where he says, I no longer call you servants, but now I call you friends. There was something as a promotion. By the way, they got that promotion much faster than I did. I've been a servant for 40 years, and I don't even think a very good one. I would say, I'm trying my best, but this isn't that great. But he grades on a curve. Thank the Lord,
So you're saying anyone can be where you're at and go further? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think they could do it much faster, much better. I don't want them to. I want to be the best friend God's ever had, but I say I don't want him to. He deserves the best we could have. I want him to have great friends. You just want to be together and have that fellowship. And, it's something I'm struggling with. I consider myself a very baby friend right now. I'm just starting this new journey of understanding how to be a friend with the Lord.
Well, I want you to come on this adventure. I'm coming on this adventure, and if I'm coming, you're coming. We're going to get God so many friends, but it starts with you. It starts with me. It starts with Rick. When we come back, I want to find out how you go swimming with Jesus.
Hi, this is Ted. Did you like that? All right. If the Bible were being written today, 2,000 years from now, people would be turning their Bibles to the Epistle of Rick. No doubt. Or maybe just a book called Rick. The Revelation of Rick. Ooh, that's a good one. The Revelation of Rick. All right. I thought today I'm going to compare the biblical God to Rick's God. In the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, we see a God who creates everything good by his word, by the word of his mouth. He's a God who protects those who sin against him. He's a God who gets angry and lashes out and destroys cities and entire world in one occasion because people are violent. And people turn away from him to other gods, and they treat outsiders badly. But he realizes after destroying the world that no matter what he does, people are still going to be evil. And so he promises never again to do what he's done. He's a God who establishes laws focusing on the love of God and love of others. He's a God who is feared. People want nothing to do with coming too close to him for fear and trembling. He's a God who cannot be seen. He's a God who allowed Moses to talk him down from lashing out against disobedient and stubborn people. In Ruth and Esther, we see a God who sides with and protects the poor and the powerless, widows. We see a God who protects his people miraculously. In the Psalms, we hear of a God who is worthy of our humility, worship, and recognition. He is God to be exalted, a God who destroys enemies, can destroy enemies. They pray that he would destroy their enemies. He is a God who helps in the midst of death and danger. He is a God who protects those who turn to him. In the book of Job, he is a God that allows bad things to happen to good people. In Ezekiel and Isaiah, he is a holy God separate. A God that people cannot stand before because he is high and lifted up. And even the most righteous among us fall before him because of sin. In these books and other prophets, he is a God who sends prophets to the nation to protect that nation against his anger. In Jeremiah and Lamentations, he is a God to be feared and a holy God who takes vengeance on and punishes those who turn to other gods and turn away from helping out those who are in need. He's a weeping God who identifies with the tragedies of the people. In the book of Jonah, we see that God turns away. He literally repents of an evil he has designed for a nation, an ungodly and horrendously bad nation, because for a moment they turned and they fasted and they prayed for forgiveness. But only in that moment. But it saved them. In other prophets, God is to be feared, a vengeful God who faces betrayal and the adultery of his people, a God who demands good treatment of other people, especially to the poor and the powerless, a God who allows his own people to face destruction, rape, slavery because they turn to other gods and because they ignore the cries of the poor and the powerless. He is a God who forgives and restores a nation destroyed because it would not listen to him. It's a God, he was a God, he is a God who turns against and puts to shame false prophets who claim so many visions and revelations because they don't know the difference between God's voice and their own imaginations. In the Gospels, we see a God who demands love to him and demands love for other people from us. He's a God who's willing to sacrifice his own son to be able to deal with and put an end to the wrath being poured out so often against sin. In the epistles, he's a God who reconciles the world to himself, a God who still demands holiness and service to others, a God who is still high and lifted up. In Hebrews, he's a God to be feared. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God, the writer of Hebrews writes. He's a God who begins judgment with his own people, who disciplines all those he loves. And he's a God who warns severely against those who leave the faith. In the book of Revelation, he is a God to be feared who allows the world to fall apart because it rejects him in the final day. This is the God of the Bible. And here is what we find in this next revelation from Rick Joyner.
You're my best friend.